Hey everybody, welcome back to Video. So today I got a fun and exciting episode for you guys this evening because a few days ago a prototype for Spyro Year of the Dragon was released by HWD 405 and Hidden Palace. And you know I always love to celebrate when new prototypes and betas for games come out, especially ones that are so popular and famous as Spyro. Before you get too far involved, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, you got a Patreon link down below as well. But it's always fun to look in the development process of games, especially ones as popular as this. And you know I always love talking about preservation and being able to have fun and new experiences with games we know, love, and remember. And Spyro Year of the Dragon having this new prototype is absolutely awesome. Seems to be a lot of changes in the game as well as a completely different soundtrack, a lot of which was not used in the retail game. But I do not have a photographic memory of this particular Spyro game. I probably played it like 5 or 6 years ago and then back when it was new on PlayStation 1. So if you see anything different or interesting that I haven't called out, leave me a comment down below because I love chatting with you guys. You have a lot more eyes than I do, so it's always helpful to see what's going on. But just to have something like this is absolutely awesome. I'm always advocating for preserving things and sharing them with people because it's a lot more fun when more people can check them out. When I can on the channel, I definitely share as much as I possibly can. And when it comes to a game like Spyro, it's so much fun just to take a look at the development history and where this game was when it was in its prototype state. And the great thing is that it's infinitely playable. It seems like the entire game is here, just a lot different than you remember it from back in the day. A lot of times you get prototypes and it might be a 1 or 2 level slice, or it might be so close to the final retail release there's not going to be that many differences, but it seems like in this Spyro prototype the differences are like a laundry list. Now I only have gotten into the game maybe the 3rd or 4th level so far. There's definitely a lot more here and it seems like it is completely playable and you can beat the game. It's just an incomplete work in progress build, and that's what's so much fun to explore with these sort of things. You get to go through a game that you remember and you get to pick out the differences and see, for lack of a better term, how the sausage gets made when people develop games like this. And again, it's so exciting to actually be able to play something like this versus it sitting in a collector's hands doing absolutely nothing, because there's still a ton of prototypes out there that are known to exist, but they have never been dumped and never been shared. And honestly, I always feel like the most fun is being able to obtain something and share it with everyone so you can talk about it, because I've dumped a lot of stuff on the channel and every time I get something new I definitely continue to do it because it's so much fun to talk to everybody about these experiences. But as far as Spyro, this prototype is concerned, it's a lot of fun just to kind of traverse the world, spot differences, and having a completely different soundtrack gives you a completely different vibe in the game as well. Leave me a comment down below and tell me once I give you the sound sample whether or not you like the soundtrack better or the actual retail release. But as far as the playability is concerned, this didn't crash on me once. I had no issues with it. It does require a dongle in the second memory card slot, whether you're on real hardware or on an emulator like I am using here, so do be aware of that. It can be a little bit tricky. You just need to assign that dongle memory card to the second slot. I did this in Duck Station and it took me maybe 5 minutes, but you can get there, and if you run into any trouble just leave me a comment down below and I will try to help you out. But it's awesome that this prototype is Spyro, because a lot of times prototypes, beta games come out for games that you maybe remember but weren't the most exciting things on a particular platform, so having as big of a release as something like Spyro is a ton of fun. I played every single Spyro game on PlayStation 1 back in the day, so much so that I took some help from my friends when they were always buying these mature rated games that were absolutely terrible and everyone wondered, why am I playing the cute colorful game? That's because Spyro was a ton of fun and it absolutely still is, and there were so many fun Spyro games on PlayStation 1. When you spent your $50 back in the day, you knew you were going to get something great, and playing it here again as this prototype, it makes me want to go through and do a whole nother replay of the game, because like I said, it's probably been 5 or 6 years since I checked it out, and I think I might actually use this prototype version to do that playthrough just to have a different experience. But it's always fun to take a look at what is changed. You'll see here I started with the enhanced look on Duck Station, but I quickly turned it off because I do think this is the type of game that benefits more from actually having the real original software rendering look. But leave me a comment down below and tell me which you think looks better, the enhanced version or the software version, because I really would be curious. There's so many different things you can do with emulation. You can play a prototype like this, enhance it, and get like a PlayStation 1.5 style experience. But the music's different. Listen, and I'll be right back.
Thank you for rescuing my town. sorry. That was the
Some fun music for sure, and it's so interesting to see how things can change even close to a retail launch date. You can find prototypes from a month or two before a game is actually shipped that have some wildly varying differences, so it's always fun to see just how close to release a game can be and still have a lot of fundamental changes. Now, of course, this was the era of skateboarding being absolutely huge, not that it isn't still, and of course the developers had to get some skateboarding into a Spyro game. Pretty much like every other game in the 90s had something to do with skateboarding. Obviously that's a wild exaggeration, but it was a very popular sport, and I will say Spyro on a skateboard, maybe not the most exciting thing in the world, but it is an interesting physics experiment to try to get him to control on a skateboard. A lot better on the ground when you're flying around, but as we move between different levels here, again, this is just one of those classic games of the PlayStation 1 era, and it's so awesome to get another prototype experience of the PlayStation 1. There's so many different games out there with so many different builds. You can spend a lifetime exploring them all and still probably not get through 50% of what's out there, but the reality is there's still a ton out there that nobody knows about or people know about and it's never been released, and that's why actually getting stuff like this is so important. There's a rich history of development versions of games that never were released, games that completely changed their overall theme and even genre during development that are locked behind walls in collectors' hands that insist that they are never going to share them with anybody, and I don't understand that whatsoever. It just seems more fun to share and to talk about the things you love. But I mean, I guess they have them so they can do whatever they please, and it's so fun to be able to actually play something like this because it means other people valued the preservation and sharing of this content as well, which is always something that you love to see. So again, big thanks to the Dumpers and Hidden Palace for actually doing something like this, and it's great to have a prototype that does have so many fundamental changes. If Spyro was your favorite game of all time and you didn't know that this prototype existed, you're definitely going to have an absolute ton of fun exploring all around the world, seeing what's different in the story, in the gameplay, in the music, because this one does bring a lot of fundamental differences and changes that people are really going to enjoy playing. And that's just the great thing. You get to see a game that you love and remember in a completely different way, and it's always great to see something like that. Even here, I feel like some of the artwork has definitely changed as we go over it a second time, just trying to see what looks different in the world. I should check out the original and maybe compare these. If you guys are interested in a video, leave me a comment down below and tell me, and maybe I'll find time to do that. And do be aware that in this same dump there was also a Crash Bash prototype, which I did check out a bit, but it didn't have a ton of changes, and honestly I don't really have any nostalgia for that game, so I didn't include it. Compared to something like Spyro here, which I just remember playing growing up. These cutscenes, the art style are so quintessentially PlayStation 1, it's so great to see them again in a different version, and I really do hope to see more awesome prototype releases in 2024. Stuff like the apparently 80% complete build of Resident Evil 1.5 supposedly exists, but that has been on the hunt for years and no one has ever really seemed to come up for it except for the one person that apparently owns it. So you never know what'll happen. Maybe it'll be out next week. Sometimes when I say things, I manifest destiny and they just happen to occur. But between the cutscenes and everything else in this game, it's just a lot of fun to see what's going on, and the dialogue is quite charming as well. So go ahead and listen for like 30 seconds or so and I'll come back and tell you a little bit more about the prototype, because there's still a lot of fun information to share and I think you guys are definitely going to want to hear it.
Ooh, look out, Hunter. It's the scary sorceress.
I've warned you already. This place isn't safe for small dragons and pussycats.
Thanks, but I think we can look after ourselves.
Try looking after this!
It's interesting that there's absolutely no music underneath those spoken dialogue lines either. You can definitely tell even how they come in and come out and have that little bit of popping that it is not final placement of the audio. But again, it's just one of those things. It's always fun to have a prototype of a very popular game, especially one that has so many fundamental differences to the actual retail release. A lot of times for the most popular games, you'll see a build that was maybe a demo build sent out a week or two before the discs were actually printed, and while they have some minor differences here and there, there's not going to be a massive amount of content differences or build differences. Where this build of Spyro Year of the Dragon has so many changes, a completely different soundtrack, a lot of temp work and dialogue put in there, you're going to be finding something new and different to see compared to the retail game the entire time, and that's why you should 100% check this game out. And honestly, it's got these hilariously small dragons doing dances as you rescue them, and that's also a fun thing too. But yeah, definitely go play the prototype for Spyro Year of the Dragon, and if you enjoy these more modern retro videos, leave me a comment down below. But short of that, we're done. Bye-bye.